All right, so good morning everyone and welcome to our webinar series, Discovering the Next Generation of Assessment Technology. My name is Doug Fidello, co-founder of OptiSource. So let us begin. Who is OptiSource? So my company, and I'll go into our homepage here, our history of the company. We were founded in 2010. We've been around for a little over a year right now. And our goal has been to deliver the multiple technologies provided by a company out of Italy called Microgate. The delivery side, the training, the technology, and the packages and the support that comes along with these two cutting-edge technologies, which are called OptoJump Next and OptoGate. You can find us, as our homepage here is at optosource.us. So down in the lower left corner, you can see this. What you'll find on our website is a little bit of a breakdown throughout the technology and gives you a nice little roadmap into a knowledge base. So we have a wide performance assessment up in the left corner, which will go into the two specific products. Our 4 pillars, which is a up and coming to be launched later this year, athlete management portal. Our assessment tools, the actual raw technologies of OptoJump and OptoGate. Our resources section, which provides you with a roadmap of news, articles, YouTube videos, and our training section. Our team or our partners, which you'll actually hear from one of our partners this morning, and the options as well as our contact us page. So moving forward, you can see also down at the bottom, we have some videos that are linked right off the site, and actually an article that is a new approach to dynamic assessment and gait analysis, which is from our guest speaker today. He has been sitting up there and launching some new and cutting-edge documentation on our technology. So we provide a suite of biomechanical assessment technology products and services that are used for the medical rehab and sports performance environments. These two products are called OptoGate and OptoJump Next. As I mentioned before, we are one of the only North American distributors for these two products, which is from Microgate, Italy. And again, I just wanted to reiterate what we focus on is our hardware and software technology. We are the solution provider for these two technologies, and we have the training and support services for our technology applications. So let me give you a little bit of a background on to who is Microgate and what do they do. So Microgate is a company based out of Italy. They provide 4 main functions. They are an engineering firm that provides telescope lenses, which we can see here as a picture. This is out of a delivery in New Mexico. Professional timing, which is their lead technology in the interest of the World Cup downhill, sports related, as well as even the Tour de France. Our training and sport, which is down below there on the right, which is actually the OptoGate technology product, and then the medical rehab, which is the OptoGate technology product. And if you wanted to, you can research the company, our parent company, microgate.it, which is the website, is down below in the lower left-hand corner. So let us go into the technology, OptoJump Next and OptoGate. These two technologies provide, in a 1-meter system, 100 LEDs that create a blanket or a carpet of light that, once broken, creates data feedback that is run through our technology that we can read. It creates real-time data. There is no compiling. There is no sampling ratio for this technology. It is in real time. Our technology is focused into 2 directions. The gate is focused on the medical rehab, which you can see here on your left, and the OptoJump Next, which is the training and sports side, which is on the right. What you see here in these 2 pictures is the left side, you see an actual 5-meter system set up where they are truly walking a gate. This gives us this dynamic ability. This can also be used in a 1-meter system on a treadmill, which we will go into a little bit more in detail with our guest speaker moving forward. On the right side, the OptoJump Next picture provides a squat jump picture of what we can see within power, contact times, and flight times within a sports performance aspect. As we're moving forward, This gives us just a nice little quick picture of the technology in a smaller focus, where you can see on the right-hand side the LEDs. That little red light is actually a visual LED. They are actually hidden back in behind on the OptoGate and OptoJump side behind a panel. You do not see these except for lights that we show for you, but it is creating a carpet or a blanket of that we can walk through it moving forward. Moving on. Our guest speaker today, I'm very excited to introduce our guest speaker is a good colleague of ours. He's been working with the system for over 2 years. He has been accumulating one of the largest data sets I've seen and is using it daily in his practice. He is working with some great clients and has a great presentation for us today on some specific data he's been working with. I'd also like to say thank you to him. Let me introduce his name is Nick Studholm. Nick, I'd like you to take over right now, and please feel free to move on forward.
Great. Thank you, Doug. I appreciate it, and I appreciate those of you that are joining us today. I know it's always difficult to get time out of the office on a busy Monday morning. That said, I also wanted to just clarify one thing Doug mentioned, which is we're going to go over a case history today that took place in my office using the OptiGate. However, anything I'm going to show you today, you can also use the OptiJump. So the neat part about that is what we'll discuss today, you're not limited to one or the other of the technologies, but it works with both. This is just a little bit about me. As a good friend of mine, Tom Hyde, says, none of this really means much. It just shows that maybe I've shown up for a little while and studied with some neat people, but it also gives just a little background into what I'm up to. So anyway, moving forward from there, I wanted to talk about this case particularly because I think it demonstrates a very neat aspect to what the gate system allows. I'm a chiropractor, and so if anyone listening is of a different discipline, I think we're all struggling in our practices to have real-time objective outcome markers that allow us to give instantaneous feedback to the patient, but also to track whether our treatments are working. And so this is just a neat case that demonstrates how the gate can be used in an office setting very rapidly to actually show me some things that I didn't think were happening, and in addition then show me whether I was doing a good or a bad job, so to speak. So this patient presented with a right sore foot, and it had been going on for 2 weeks. They like to run, and as the weather was changing, it was the spring, and she wanted to run again. And as she ran, she realized that right foot was sore, so she came in, and the humor to me was I looked back in the chart note. She had been in exactly a year earlier, and she had the exact same pain a year before. So anyway, we took a look, and like I said, you can read here, but the pain was on the lateral side of the foot, and it was dull achiness, and so she decided to come in and get it dealt with because she had stopped running. So the other piece of the puzzle that I want to share here at the bottom is that I had given her a series of things to do the year prior, which she had admitted to not doing at all. So let's take a look at what happened when I walked her on the OptiGate. Well, before that, I'll just quickly go through my assessment. I tend to do a couple different things. I like a lot of weight-bearing functional assessments, and then I use the gate to put data to that. But she did have pain walking, and I checked some of the muscles. She had inhibited right glute max, peroneus longus, tensor fascia lata, posterior tibialis. She had limited ankle dorsiflexion when we were doing a squat, with the right more limited than the left, and decreased hip extension. She also, when we did an anterior lunge, she was tighter in that right hamstring as she was reaching towards the ground. And when I was checking her heel movement relative to inversion or eversion, or from a whole foot perspective, pronation or supination, she had limited inversion with dorsiflexion, which is really what that back leg and gait has to do when we're toeing off. So if we look at the test, I think, that should be the next slide. What we can see here is if we initially just look at this as a series of different phases of gait, we have step length, then we have what's called single support, and then double support. And we're really looking initially at the right to left differences. For those of you that haven't seen these reports, the right is always classified as a negative number, the left as a positive. So if the right is longer, it will be a negative number. If the left is longer, it will be a positive number. So on average, and I would say that, as Doug mentioned, over the year and a half plus that I've been using this, I typically see that an average step length is less than 3 to 4% asymmetrical, but usually less than 3%. So when she came in and we walked her pre-intervention, she had an 8.5% asymmetrical step, with the left being a longer step than the right. So we can look then as we scroll through here, and you can see that her swing phase was 10.2% longer on the left, meaning she's swinging that leg, the left leg is in swing longer than the right, and she's spending almost 11% longer in single support. So it's interesting to see that she is hanging out on that right side, swinging the heck out of that left leg to get that bigger step. Now, of note, her load response and pre-swings are quite large as well. And this is the time of double support. And we can, at some point in the future, we'll probably have a webcast breaking down very specifically joint by joint what's going on here. But this is really heel strike to foot flat just before toe off. And so what you can see is she's spending almost 10% longer striking her right foot prior to the left foot toeing off than she is on the left foot prior to the right foot toeing off. And so that does add up a bit, thinking longer time on the right foot. So her single support is 10.9%, as we mentioned, and her load response is almost 10%. So she's hanging out on that right side a lot longer, and that would make sense. And I would say that the gait print here that we're looking at doesn't always make perfect sense, because the pain can be coming from other areas, but this one added up pretty nicely. So based on the assessment, we decided to go ahead and treat. So let's take a look. So before we look at the second gait print, the treatment for me consisted of mobilizing that right foot. So I adjusted her calcaneus and her midfoot, trying to create a little more eversion with dorsiflexion. I'm sorry, inversion with dorsiflexion. And then I treated the muscles that weren't engaging and worked on the hip. And she got up and had a lot less pain with walking. So had we just used pain as an objective outcome marker, we would see in a moment from the gait print that it was a pretty bad marker of change. So let's take a look at the next gait print here. So what's really interesting to note is, if you recall, that was, I think, 8.6% asymmetrical left longer step on the pre-intervention. And so here I go ahead and I adjust her. What do we see? She goes to 11.5% asymmetrical. So suddenly we're thinking to ourselves, well, wait a minute. She feels better. As a chiropractor, I adjusted her, had a very nice release, and so it made a nice pop. And yet, when we're looking at her biomechanics, we've actually decompensated her. Maybe we've made her move worse. Now, what's interesting is, if you look at the stance, swing, single support, those have actually improved slightly. They were, if you recall, the single support was almost 10%, and she's at 6.8. The load response and pre-swings didn't change much. So if we think of this, and this may get slightly technical, and like I said, we'll have another webcast on this, but if you think of, in a very simplistic manner, the step length as being sagittal plane motion, the stance phase as being, well, in single support as being somewhat frontal plane, and then load response and pre-swings as being transverse plane motions, we decompensated to some degree, it looks like, her sagittal plane, but improved her frontal plane motion. So just an interesting picture. What the problem here as a chiropractor is that, had I stopped here and simply not had the OptiGate to assess what was going on, I would have assumed, based on the fact that she had a pain-free foot and the fact that we had a very nice release, that she was better. So clearly what I can see is this was not a great intervention. And for all of you in clinical practice, you know how this feels. This is the scariest thing about having this piece of software, is that, and this tool, is you're able to check your results, and sometimes you don't like what you find. So let's take a look at what we did. So here's the comparison, and I mentioned this already about that we may have forced the body to be more asymmetrical, but as you can see here, the step length has significantly gone the wrong direction. And this is always curious because this to me is maybe that patient who you treat the foot and they come back at the next visit and say, you know, my foot's feeling great, but my hip's killing me, something like that. Or maybe they come back and say, you know, that didn't last. But so we've got to step back and say this is no way to leave a patient. So let's look at sort of the next approach we went through. So I thought to myself, if she's taking a long left step, then that's a short right step. And I have to share that because that is how I simply want to initially break down the data. So if she's taking a short right step, what tissues would limit that? And so we looked at, for me, the tissues that would limit that are the fact that she might have a tight left calf, that she might have early heel up on the left, limited hip extension on the left, and possibly a tight right hamstring. So I use a technique from Gary Gray called functional manual reaction, and I got her in a weight-bearing position and started to mobilize those joints, chasing that inversion with dorsiflexion in the left foot, hip extension simultaneously, and then lengthening of the right hamstring. And so let's take a look at what changed. So what we can see is a dramatic change. So we went from the last test being over 11% to 3.4% step length asymmetry. Now we're getting into that range where this is a value that I'll tolerate. This is what I tend to see as an average asymmetry. Now, of course, I might want her slightly more symmetrical, but day-to-day, gait print to gait print, it might slightly change. But this is a happy data point for me. Now, what's even more impressive to me and made me really smile because it made me realize not only the power of what we do as clinicians, but also how we can really get it wrong, or sometimes we can really get it right. But if you take a look at the rest of her values of single support and double support, you know, these were upwards of 10% asymmetrical, and we're less than 2% just about on all of them. So we really did change her loading patterns. So if you think about somebody walking around with, or running in this case, with right ankle pain, and they had a single support phase of 10% right longer than left, and now they're down to 1.7%, you can immediately see what kind of change that would create in that right ankle as far as less time spent on it relative to the left, and hopefully a reduction in pain. In addition, when we look at this load response time, which again is heel strike to foot flat just before toe off of the left foot, we've reduced that substantially as well. So this was a really neat situation. So if we then, I like to tape, I use a lot of taping styles, and I wanted to coach this treatment with tape. So we then went ahead and taped her. So let's take a look at that. So this last one I taped an arch on the right foot, and then I taped her glute TFL complex relative to what I found inhibited. And again, as I mentioned, it was in an attempt to reinforce the pattern. And this is also curious because after tape, we might see that we actually took it the wrong direction or the right. And for those of you that use any of the kinesiologic taping and or other styles, I think what you find, and I found with my athletes, is the technology has allowed me, either through jumping, running, walking, to really hone in on what the appropriate tape solution will be for that particular athlete with that particular injury. So anyway, let's take a look and see what the taping did. So what you'll see is the step length didn't change much at all. It stayed, I think it was 3.2, and now it's 3.4. So statistically, no different. And again, very few statistical differences here, but what you will see is that the stance, swing, single support, load response, and pre-swings, they actually all improved slightly. So that pleases me. It tells me that the tape is coaching properly and doing exactly what I would like. So that's the really neat aspect of this, is this was 4 gait prints over the course of a half an hour. And I want to sort of elaborate that on for just a moment, that I typically do half-hour visits in my office, and what you can see is was able to accomplish a heck of a lot, because the gate print really only takes me about 30 seconds to a minute. It's me just being slow in my treatment that takes me the rest of the half an hour. But I was able to very easily, in a half an hour, treat her 4 different times and collect 4 gate prints. And so again, if anybody ever feels like the technology is either going to be too challenging to implement into a busy practice, I will definitely be available to discuss that and share with any practitioner my own experiences. So the humor of this entire case, and I guess why it demonstrated a really neat piece, is for any of you who actually tuned into our initial webinar, we talked a little bit about patient compliance and how the technology facilitates that. And this was a really neat thing because it turned out that the FMR that I discussed earlier, the 3rd treatment, was a series of stretches. So for her left calf, left hip, and then right hamstring that I had prescribed to her a year earlier. So the neat part was she saw such a powerful change as the data was able to show relative to that her stretches created that change, that she left not only pain-free but recognized that her homework program was really the key to her maintaining this. So for me, from a compliance standpoint, it was a home run because there's just no better way to show a patient than with objective data. So it was quite a neat case. So again, just to recap, we took somebody who came in with right ankle pain and they were taking a significant asymmetrical stance, single support, step length, etc. We treated them and actually made them worsen. So just for a minute, if I digress and then we'll finish up, is as a chiropractor, many times I think in our offices we predicate success on hearing pops, and this is a really good example of had I just stopped after hearing the ankle pop, I would have left this patient in a worse place. So again, it's the power of the data and the ability to quickly collect it that allowed me to have such a neat outcome. So I think this is the end of the PowerPoint, and we're happy to I'll let Doug take over from here. If there are any questions, that would be great. We'll be happy to answer those.
Thank you, Nick. That was awesome. I appreciate you going through this, and your personal stories are definitely helping out the understanding and the knowledge base that you have accumulated through working with this technology. There don't seem to be any questions at this time, but if there are, you can also reach us at contact@optosource.us. Our webpage is optosource.us. Our phone number is right in front of you at 800-757-6528. I'd like to thank Nick again for his time and everybody that attended. Thank you all, and have a great day.